Here to break that down and a whole lot more. Let's bring in adjunct professor at Montclair State University, Dan Geltrude. Okay, so Dan, since Thursday's verdict, the Trump campaign says they've received $70 million in small donor donations. Let's take a listen to RNC co-chair Laura Trump on CNN breaking it all down.
The American people came out, and in 48 hours after Donald Trump's verdict was read, our campaign and the RNC raised $70 million in digital fundraising. This is small dollar donations. And I think the amazing statistic to take out of that is that 30% of that money came in from people who had never once donated to Donald Trump.
Yeah, Dan, we've been hearing a lot of that. These are people that had not previously supported him or not previously donated before. I mean, these are $5, $10 donations, certainly adding up. I mean, what does this outpouring of so much money from these small dollar donors to the Trump campaign really tell you about the state of this presidential race and where the minds of voters are, especially amid this weak economy?
I think there's a few things here, Alex. First of all, the political rules that we're used to simply don't apply to Donald Trump. It is unheard of that you could have somebody who has a felony conviction raise this type of money. So that goes to the fact of Donald Trump has become a sympathetic figure, and people simply don't like what's going on. And you can't blame them. They want to have their say on election day. They don't want to have the legal system taking a candidate out. And the last thing I'll say here is, you know, people talk about, are the polls accurate? And it's so hard to know where things stand. But when you look at the amount of dollars raised, well, to me, that tells a very, very strong story here. So I think Donald Trump is in this, and he could very well win it based upon what's happening in the legal system.
Yeah, I mean, people are really putting their money where their mouth is. They think he was wronged, and so they're putting their money up to support Donald Trump. I believe since his mugshot a few months ago that the Trump campaign has raised a few $100 million. So he certainly has that backing behind him. According to a KPMG report, child care costs have been rising over the last few decades at nearly twice the rate of inflation, increasing by more than, get this, 250% between 1990 and April of this year, with child care costs adding up to 10 to 20% of the family's overall household income. Dan, I mean, let's be real. Parents have enough to worry about when it comes to bills. Why is child care costs rising? And what does it tell you about the economy right now?
This goes back to, once again, supply and demand. If you look at Americans that have children between the ages of 6 and 17, you have a workforce participation rate of 78% for women, 92% for men. So what does that tell you? Parents are working. They need to work. So you need child care services. You have 12,000 people per day turning 35 years old. That is the sweet spot for having the need for child care. So there simply isn't enough support there. And what you have is prices rising like crazy. And when you throw inflation on top of this, it's a bad formula. People simply can't afford child care. Huge problem.
Yeah, they can't afford it, but they are kind of forced to have to use it because now we've got two-parent incomes just to be able to afford groceries, just to be able to afford anything in their lives when it used to maybe be just a one-parent income into a home. Let's talk a little Tesla, recalling more than 125,000 vehicles due to issues with their seatbelt warning systems. So the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration saying that Tesla actually failed to comply with federal safety requirements with seatbelt warning lights and that audible chime not getting activated when drivers are not belted. So the recall is affecting certain models, S, X, Y, and 3 vehicles. I mean, Dan, we've talked about this before. This is not the first major recall Tesla has had this year. What's going on?
Well, they had a reverse visibility issue earlier on, and they also had an accelerator pedal issue. However, when you look at these types of issues, we are somewhat numb to them because we hear about recalls constantly. The good news about this specific issue that Tesla is having is that it should be able to be remedied by a software update. So here's modern technology for you. You have a recall, but we're going to be able to do something about this by doing a software update. Let's hope that's the case here.
Yeah, I did see that. Isn't it very interesting how far we've come in technology? When there's a recall, it's, oh, just update your car's computer system. It's very interesting where we've come. Dan Geltrude, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, everyone.